Hey there, y'all. How's it going? My name is Rabbit, and welcome to episode 181 of Let's Play Jade Cocoon 2, where we're continuing to make our way through the bonus forest here in the post-game. So where we had left off previously, we had just wrapped up exploring Firestorm Island number 3. So we're going to just hit the ground running here in Firestorm number 4. Not too much in terms of a recap because we are just grinding through. Oh shit, I was hoping that we would get a little bit lucky and be able to just squeeze on past him. Unfortunately, that was not the case. So I've been a little bit book and trigger happy, using up all my shit, trying to get through, you know how it goes. Depending on where we're kind of at as we make our way through further, I may or may not start cutting fights again. I think I cut out 1 or 2 in our last episode, or I'm planning on it anyway since I'm like recording this in one batch. So just throwing it out there. I don't know if that's going to honestly make a huge difference in terms of time, but I don't know. We'll just see. If I feel like an episode is just kind of drolling on and the fights are paced very similarly, I'll probably just, cut out a fight, use a bunch of books to try to make it as fast as possible, but you guys know how it goes. So I thought I would put that on your radar. I know there was a point where I was cutting out some fights, but earlier on, the battles themselves only took like 30 seconds a piece, but now we're to the point where they can eat up a better chunk of your time than when we were all in the earlier forms, in the earlier levels. So we'll see. But thought I would go ahead and open by sharing that, and also as a reminder for myself to be thinking about that as I'm editing. So I am hoping / projecting that we probably will only have 2 more, maybe max 3 more episodes left that should encompass all of what Firestorm has to offer. Each of the islands, we kind of saw this just with our previous level 6 forest that we ended up going through, which was the wind forest, that there are 6 actual islands that have battles and cutscenes and all that fun stuff, and then the 7th island houses a jewel, or basically like another type of orb from the forest's heart or its soul, if you want to go that far. So honestly, with us starting out here on island number 4, I'm thinking we might be able to get through island number 4 in half of 5, and then, half of 5 and all of 6 in another episode. So that's what I'm rooting for. It's what I'm banking on. Let's see. I have been kind of sharing with you guys that I'm entertaining the idea of us just knocking out absolutely everything for Jade Cocoon 2 in one sitting, because as Andrew and I draw nearer and nearer to our big move, I don't know if I'm going to want to have to worry too much about picking up where we had left off with this versus, really? I feel like it's been a minute since we've seen an egg. So what is this? Oh, this is just an ordinary. You guys, I was hoping that maybe this was going to be a more powerful special beast, but it's not looking like it. Looks like an ordinary coup to me. What do you guys say? So anyhow, returning back to what I was starting to say. So I'm still on the fence about that. We are at the very least going to be knocking out 2 of the level 6 forests here in this recording batch, or these series of recording sessions. But whether or not I want to try to extend that, I mean, we're going to be knocking on like 20 to 25 episodes. So that's going to be a month of Jade Cocoon 2, which I don't know if I even have the guts for that, let alone to expect you guys to endure that. So I don't know. Maybe we'll just tackle 2 of them and then do maybe 2 weeks of Brave Fencer Musashi, and then if I can have my final like 1 to 2 recording batches kind of comprise one final recording session for Jade Cocoon 2. So I don't know. We'll see. Throwing it out there. You guys know that I really like to have some sort of structure, at least in the back of my head, as to what I'm playing and in what order. But for the most part, it just all comes down to availability and my own accessibility to editing footage after it's been recorded. So all of that kind of comes into play with what rolls out and on what time frame. So all of that is in the back of my mind. So, if there are a couple days in between, it's not that I forgot about you guys. Oh, no, no, no. I just have a lot of shit going on. But I really am hoping that we can kind of just blast through all of this in one go, because I think once Andrew and I arrive to North Carolina, it'd be so nice to only have Brave Fencer Musashi. Do I even want to pick this up? I mean, I guess whatever. Vordrek. Why not? It'd be so nice to only have Brave Fencer Musashi plus what will be taking Jade Cocoon 2's place. So then it's kind of like a new series is going to begin as Andrew and I are beginning a new chapter of our lives. I know it sounds a little bit cheesy, but I think having that overlap there would just be phenomenal for me. Not that it honestly matters at the end of the year. Will it make a difference if I conclude everything for Jade Cocoon 2 before the end of the month of May versus it maybe spilling over into like July or August, if we do take that 8 to 10 week gap, since we will be resuming Brave Fencer Musashi once this batch is done, regardless of whether that ends up just being 2 forests or all 4. So I don't know. It's just more of, I think, an internal thing that I would like to have happen. But, whether it actually unravels that way, who can really say? I try not to worry too much about specifics because I feel like it makes me anxious, and I set myself up to where I have very high expectations for things that don't necessarily need them. And it's not needed, and it's not always good to care that much about things that, honestly, at the end of the day, doesn't make that big of a difference. Probably not. As long as we're having a good time, that's really the goal here. So, good news, turning it over to the game. We saw our friend, I think that one is Emil, or maybe that's Lexi, honestly. I feel like not super keeping up with who is still here and who's been swapped out. I think that one's No, that one's Emil. No, I think Emil was on my win side. Well, we'll find out soon enough. But hitting the final form, so we've got 2 people here. Ciara recently hit her final form as well. So we've got a few people in the squad who, I think this one's Lexi. Emil was green, and he was on our earth side. So, maybe I am paying attention just a little bit. So anyhow, friends, we are just chugging right along. Things are great over here in my camp. I was sharing with you guys, as for, I guess, a recap of the stories that I disclosed to you all, that I do have a bit of traveling that is coming up for work, and I'm not sure how big of an impact that will play in the channel and content rolling out. I'm not anticipating it making that big of a difference, but you never know. I just like to keep you guys in the loop. So how are they? Oh my God, those 2 are chilling. How are things for you guys? I hope the weather hasn't been too bad. I feel like spring kind of got passed on here in Wisconsin. We went from fucking harsh snow and blizzards in May, like literally the beginning of May, we still had a little bit of snow, to all of a sudden, seemingly over the course of a weekend, it being in the 70s and 80s. So essentially we went from frigid winter to hot, humid bullshit summer. Like, no spring happened here, at least where Andrew and I are at. There was no true seasonal transition, which is, I guess it's fine, but it kind of sucks because I think I was sharing with you guys that spring is probably my favorite season, with fall falling in a close, fall falling in a close second place for favorite seasons. So I am looking forward to being in North Carolina, where weather is going to be considerably more temperate, and we're just not going to have those extremes of, oh my gosh, it's -30 with high wind chill on top of that, so making it feel more like -40, and then all of a sudden it being fucking 80 degrees like a day or 2 later. I'm not the type of person who cares that much about weather. Like, I would never pick where I'd want to live based on that, whereas I know there are some people that they're like, nope, not living anywhere where it gets colder than 20 Fahrenheit, which I get it. Like, when it's super duper cold outside, it really limits a lot of what you can do, especially if, let's say, you are the kind of person that you don't like to drive, you like to walk to work or ride your bicycle. Being somewhere like where Andrew and I live right now in Wisconsin is probably not for you. It gets dangerously, bitterly cold here. So I 100% I can support those folks who are like, nope, not doing it. It has to be a place that doesn't get colder than 20 Fahrenheit, and that's where I'm at. I personally don't care enough to draw that firm of a line in the sand, but, I feel ya, and I can 100% relate to that sentiment of what the fuck, why is it so cold, why am I here? Certainly I felt that way in Kansas, where it wasn't just how cold it was, and for those of you who've been following me for a while, you probably remember that my time in Kansas was very interesting, and that there was a huge tornado that hit my university during a summer where I was taking classes, and I was in one of the buildings that its roof got fucked up. It was so scary. And I just feel like Kansas has god-awful weather. It goes from like fucking flood season to ice storm / blizzard season to tornado season to it doesn't fucking stop being windy and dry season. It was just nuts. And I liked Kansas. I think I've shared with you guys before that honestly, if I was single right now and someone told me I could have a wonderful job wherever I wanted to go, all I have to do is just pick a place and I can plop down there, I don't know if I would live in the same town where I was at in Kansas, but I think Kansas would be in my top 3 United States to be, or I guess North American states to live in for a couple of years, because I like the small town feel, but still with the accessibility to bigger scale entertainment and bigger scale opportunities. I wouldn't want to live in a tiny town of 200 people in the deep northern parts of Wisconsin. I think those would be fun for raising a family, but I don't know if I was single, if I would necessarily want to live like that. But also putting it out there, I wouldn't want to live in a place like New York City or San Francisco. Not that there's anything wrong with those places, but I don't think that they really speak to me as an individual person. They're just not necessarily my cup of tea. I think I like smaller town feel, but still in a medium-sized community, but bordering on areas, or at least somewhat accessible to areas that are maybe smaller city vibes, so that way you don't feel like you're missing out on too much and you're not living in isolation, but you still have the calm and the community feel of the non-heavily city areas, if that makes any sense whatsoever. So I share all of that just to come back to the point that I liked Kansas. I think it was a nice place for me to be for my undergrad. The 4 years that I spent there, I enjoyed quite a lot, but I don't know. The weather was a little bonkers, you guys. Kansas is a special, special place. If you haven't been there before, I think you should go. There's a lot to see. I think people make fun of it and they say, oh, it's flat, or all they really associate it with is the Wizard of Oz. And ha ha ha, I get it. Yes, how original. We get it. Dorothy, Toto, Kansas. It's been said a million times before. But I think that there are areas, there's a place called Kanza Prairie that has just beautiful flowing hills, and there's some buffalo. It's a nice nature reserve. I think that some of the universities that are there are very beautiful and have a lot to offer. So you've got KU in Lawrence, that's pretty happening, and I think that Kansas State University in Manhattan, it's more chill but still kind of exciting. It's got a nice international presence, so if you are kind of like me and your family's not from here and you want to still feel a little bit more of a...
Hey there, aren't you that hungry guy?
What?
Hey, thanks for your help. Hanging in there.
I haven't been doing much. You're looking a lot better.
I guess so. My stupid brother felt better after eating too. That Nam guy also apologized and gave back the divine beast.
Oh!
Happy, happy, happy! Well, I hope to see you around in the forest sometime.
Yeah, see ya.
Okay, at first I was confused, but maybe you guys don't remember this because we've been taking such big gaps in between recording batches for Jade Cocoon 2, but there was a point where 2 Og guys were pissed off because Nam had stolen, allegedly, their divine beast, and honestly I don't remember what the conclusion to that side story was. It obviously bore no impact on the main plot, so, for whatever it was worth, I guess it was there just as like a side thing to entertain you. Not super important, and I don't really care that much, but now I recall who this douchebag is.
Yeah, let's go at it in the arena sometime.
Whoa, put your dick back in your pants and please take a couple steps away from me. Kahu is just a kid, y'all. I don't know what is wrong with all of these folks. So, anyway, I think if you're a little bit like me, but you still want to have access to like international shops because there are certain ingredients you cook with or dishes that you like to make, but a lot of modern stores might not have those supplies. I think Manhattan, Kansas was a really cool area that for how small it was, it had such a nice international presence that I felt like I don't know if I would ever buy a house in Manhattan, but I would definitely go back to scout it out. I think Wichita also is pretty cool. Wichita has a lot to offer, actually. I think, again, when people think of Kansas, all I've ever really heard from people outside of the Wizard of Oz is Topeka, because, Topeka is the capital. So like many capitals of states, there is a lot going on in terms of there being more of a city vibe. So I think if you're the kind of person that you need a lot of entertainment in terms of accessibility to theaters and to clubs and I don't know, maybe even if you just want more competitive wages for whatever position you're pursuing for a career, I think Topeka's a nice place to be. Like, I enjoyed the time that I spent in Topeka, and I enjoyed what I experienced of it. But again, I wouldn't fucking live in Topeka. I would pick Lawrence, Manhattan, or Wichita over Topeka if I had to just right now buy a house somewhere. But anyway, I guess, Kansas, it's always on my radar. In spite of the fact that the weather, I'm gonna be honest. I think Kansas's weather was kind of garbage, and the fact that it just had extremes in every single season. Like, what place gets fucking floods, ice storms, blizzards, tornadoes, and like fucking dry spells with extremely high heat all in one? It's like it had the worst of everything. The only thing Kansas didn't really get, or at least during my time there, I guess it didn't get earthquakes, and obviously, there were no tsunamis. That's it. Everything else that could be awful in terms of like natural disasters, fucking Kansas got. And people there are resilient, y'all. Like, I guess because they grew up dealing with all of this crazy weather, people did not give a fuck. I remember my first tornado in Kansas. I was losing it, and people were like, oh, it's not a big deal. There's storm shelters everywhere. Like, calm down. Like, it didn't faze anybody. There was I don't remember if it was the summer or if it was the spring. There was a season where I still remember it was like my junior year. There was awful flooding. So much flooding, actually, the university had closed down for like 2 days so that they could get some shit together because some of the basements were starting to flood. And I mean, no one could drive anywhere. I remember Andrew had actually been visiting me at this time because he had stayed in Arkansas. So we kind of were distant. Our relationship was distant for the 4 years. So we had dated in high school and we both lived in Arkansas, but I went to Kansas for my undergrad and he went to a different town in Arkansas for his undergrad. So anyway, long story short was he was coming to visit me at that time, and I remember his mind was blown. It was raining nonstop. We couldn't drive anywhere. We had to park my car outside of the parking lot of the apartment complex I lived in because all of the parking spots were flooded. And when I say flooded, I don't just mean like 3, 4, 5 inches of water so it's uncomfortable to walk through. I mean, there was like 8 to 10 inches of water and you couldn't drive in. Like, cars that were low to the ground, like, were fucked. They were so fucked. I drive an SUV, so it's not that big of a deal, but it just was nuts. It was absolutely nuts. And I remember there was an evening, Andrew and I were walking to grab some groceries, and there were people just in their swimsuits just running up and down what should have been sidewalks, but really they were like wading through it, having a good ass time. Because I mean, what else are you gonna do? Like, power was out in some parts of town because a couple of poles had been toppled over. It was nuts. It was just so nuts. And I remember still very vividly Andrew looking at me and he was like, why the fuck did you come to Kansas? Like, what is this state? It's insane. But no offense to those of you born and raised in Kansas, because I still hold fast to the mentality that Kansas is incredible in its own special way. And don't mind me like running around. I'm just trying to peep everything to make sure. I think I got, okay. Yep, I did. So there was only one path we hadn't explored. Oh no, please, you guys, don't fuck with me, please. I'm just trying to get through. So yes, anyway, Andrew, I remember, was just astonished by everything that was kind of going down in Kansas because it was a little zany, just a wee bit. So anyway, all of that to say, I loved Kansas. I don't know if it's necessarily the type of place where I'd like to ideally retire, but it's a place that I would absolutely revisit. So with all of that being said, I don't really need these. You know what? I'm probably just going to drop this Vordrek egg. Like, why? I don't know. Maybe it's fine to hold on to it, and probably in our upcoming episode, I will use this hide spore so we can kind of just blast on through. I feel like our levels are fine. Our power is honestly good. This team is so much better than when we first kickstarted this batch of episodes that are rolling out as we started in the level 6 Wind Forest. So I'm not feeling like it's as imperative for us to be getting into these battles because, XP, it's still good. We're wanting people to be getting those levels and becoming mergeable, especially in our kennel. But I don't think it needs as much weight as it did previously. So with that being shared, in our upcoming episode, we're going to make our way through Firestorm number 5. Hopefully this one won't take as long since I'm going to utilize that hide spore that we've got here. If we're lucky, maybe we'll find a second one. But either way, friends, hopefully in no more than 2 episodes, we will be completely done exploring everything that Firestorm has to offer. And then we'll truly be at the crossroads of determining, do we want to just end it here and then have another 8 to 10 week hiatus and then finish up with the water and earth level 6 forest, or do we want to go ahead and just tackle everything in one go? I don't know. We still got a couple of episodes of wiggle room to ascertain what's going to be the best route for us to take. So yeah, I will be thinking on that. So thank you so much for watching, everyone. I am your host, Rabbit, and this is my playthrough of Jade Cocoon 2, where we are continuing to explore the bonus forest here in the post game. So I appreciate you joining me thus far in this adventure, everyone, and I look forward to seeing you rather promptly in episode 182. So I'll see y'all there.